Hi everybody, it's Jen with Caketastic Cakes, and I'm going to show you how to make a very cute and not too heavily detailed Foxy cake from Five Nights at Freddy's. And if you see me use any tools or supplies that you could use yourself, if you check the link in the description below, it will take you to my Amazon shop. It's got all kinds of recommendations in there. Helps me out, which is always great too. And you can find what you need. So, this cake began as just a chocolate cake. It is 6 inches across and it is about 2 inches, a little bit less per layer. So you've got a nice sized little cake. Prepare it like you will. Make sure you have it all nice and iced. Put it in the refrigerator for a little bit and let it get nice and cool so it's nice and firm. It's a nice, firm, cool cake. All right, now for the foxy part. Now I'm rolling out some fondant on my countertop and I colored it with the copper color. I probably should have made it a little more rusty colored, but it came out coppery and you'll see what I end up trying to do later on. I rolled it out nice and thin and then layer it over your cake. If you're familiar with covering cakes with fondant, you know what I'm doing here. You kind of lift the edges out and tuck downwards, make it as nice and smooth as you can and then trim off all the extra. And if you are newer to cakes and cake decorating, I do have some beginner videos if you want to check those out that show you a little bit more in detail about covering a cake, stacking a cake, filling a cake, all that good stuff. So, I will get you there. And if you're willing to try, it's going to come out. That's what I always say. If you're willing to try, you can follow directions, you can do it. All right, we got the cake covered. It's all trimmed, it's all smoothed. Put your cake back in the refrigerator if you need to, or you can start making the decorations. The cake was covered in fondant, and now I'm using gum paste in order to make the ears. And I'm using just brown fondant. I colored it brown with my gel food coloring. And I cut out 2 circles and then shaped them into teardrops, as you can see. Those are going to become the inner part of Foxy's ears. Now the outer part of Foxy's ears is just some more of the fondant that I was using before, and I added some CMC powder. This will help it set up. It's something you can add to fondant to make it set, and it'll behave like gum paste pretty much. I did this because I was running out of gum paste, honestly. Otherwise, I would have just colored some of it copper myself and done it that way. But as you can see, the brown part is rolled out pretty thin, and I laid it on top of the orange, or I'm going to call it orange copper, and then pressed it down into it, and then pushed lollipop sticks into it. They're just cardboard lollipop sticks because no one gets hurt on my cakes. I don't use any toothpicks or wires or anything like that. And then reshape it if I need to back into my teardrop ear shape. And as you can see, I made 2. Now this brown piece right here is his muzzle. It was a oval, like a oval that I cut in half to make it flat on the back and then cut again to make it flat on the bottom. My camera angles were terrible on this. I apologize, you couldn't see it. But using 2 pieces of lollipop stick, I pressed them into the muzzle and then made print on the face where I wanted to go, pushed in a lollipop stick to make basically a couple of pilot holes, and then press the whole muzzle against it. If you need to help it stick a little better, you could put some water on the back of it and that'll help it stick better too. Now that was a little piece of dried spaghetti with some more of the fondant on top that I shaped into a nice kind of soft triangle, and 2 more of them make his hair. The hair curves out on the outsides, as you can see, and straight up in the center. Now his nose is just a ball of black that I did add another piece of dried spaghetti. And if you do use dried spaghetti for support instead of toothpicks, you can eat it, it won't get hurt or anything. And just make sure you use regular. It can't be like whole wheat or anything. Now that's just a piece of black that was rolled thin in like an oval underneath the muzzle all the way to the cake board and a little bit out. And that's going to become his mouth. So now his mouth is like a shelf, and I just outlined it with a roll of the, again, copper fondant. So now this way he has kind of his bottom jaw coming out a little bit, and it's out the distance of his muzzle sticking out too. All right, these are going to become his cheek fur, I'm going to call it. I have a thick piece of the fondant rolled thin like a big long oval. Not thin, it was actually maybe a quarter or third of an inch thick. And I cut it in half to make it even. And then I'm just trimming the pieces down until they just look right, because you don't want it to be taller than his muzzle. I put one slice at an angle as you saw, and I'm curving them up. Those are going to become his little cheek fur tufts, if you will. And when you're happy with it, you can put a little bit of water on the back of it if you need it to stick better. And I'm just pressing it up against the muzzle and then trying to get the sides to stay curved up. That tool I'm using right there is just going to smooth the cheek fur into the sides of the mouth a little bit better. Now this is some white fondant I rolled out nice and thin. Using a circle cutter, I cut out a circle, and I also cut out one layer of the orange covering the cake and then plugged it with the white. I have a smaller circle of yellow fondant that I just pushed right on top, and this is that makes his eye. And now, if you're familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's, you'll know he only has one eye that shows, so we only need to make one. All right, this is a thin piece rolled out long, as you can see, and I'm just cutting out triangles. This is to make his teeth. Foxy has, well, all of them in Five Nights at Freddy have big jaggedy teeth, all the better to eat you with, my dear. And I'm going to make a little row of dentures for the bottom of his jaw and then again for the top. And the top, I did have to put water onto it in order to get it to stick. And again, I'm using a veining tool. It's a real pointy one to go between the teeth to press it up into the jaw and set it into place. There you go. Okay, looking good. And what you didn't see there, or maybe you caught a little bit, is I almost slid him right off of my cake plate and onto the floor. So, yes, be careful. All right, I added two little plugs of white fondant to the bottom of each ear, basically like mini marshmallow shape and size. I added some little freckles to his face, just little balls of black fondant, 3 of them, so you can see the placement there. Okay, just stuck them on with a little bit of water. And then I'm adding an outline to his eye, and I'm sure you've seen my dogs running around in the background now. They love it when I make cake because they get scraps sometimes. But anyway, okay, so it's a little piece of black fondant that I rolled out really thin just between my palms. I tapered it at either end and then just outlined the top half, about half of his eye. It was for a little boy. He was turning 8. He did not need the full effects of the big, spooky, creepy, withered Foxy. So he gets the little bit of a nicer version. Now these are thin pieces of fondant that I colored, it was burgundy. These are going to become his eyebrows. You're basically making bananas. Just roll out a couple of thin bananas, make them a good size. He does not tweeze his eyebrows, so they're there. They're decent. And put one over his one eyebrow and one over the other where it would be if he had his eye. All right, this circle that I cut out of the black fondant, I trim off the one edge, shape it up a little bit, is going to be his eye patch. So it's just a circle, and you cut off the one side. When you place it on his eye socket, place it a little bit at an angle, just the way you can see it there, so it's not perfectly flat. This way, when you roll out a big thin strip of the black for the band to hold his eye patch in place, it will kind of fit the shape of his head a little bit better and not cut straight across his other eyeball. It goes up and over, you see? Okay, moving on. I've got some edible silver shimmer. I am painting those little white marshmallow plugs we put under his ears because he is kind of beat up. He's a mechanic what are they called? I forget. Animatronics, that's it. That's the word. So we want that to look a little bit more metal. Now put those aside and let them dry. And at that point, you can stop if you want to, if you're happy with it. Remember at the beginning, I had said I wasn't happy with the color. So what I did was I took some water and some brown food coloring and a really big wet paintbrush and just painted over the whole darn thing. And this gave it a little bit deeper of a color, and I was happier with it. So when you're happy with the color, rub it with paper towels if you decide to do it, or don't. You can always stop. Place your ears in, again, using the lollipop sticks. And when it dries, it's not shiny anymore, and it looks really, really cool. So I know it was fast. I know it was kind of choppy and not the best angle, so I do apologize for that. However, I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. I've got many, many, many other videos out there, and as well as just the characters if you want to make just edible decorations. Lots of videos, so check those out. And as always, thanks for watching Caketastic Cakes.